Hello everyone. So I just wanted to take this time to bring our vision, 9CI's vision, together. So hopefully in a way that makes sense. We do a lot of very rigorous testing on our meters. We test and retest again, all in the hopes of figuring out how accurate we can be, because there are great concerns over the possible health effects of EMF and RFR. This is also why we do research on peer-reviewed, published literature. We know that RF is difficult to test for, and we know that there is a disconnect between the understanding between the engineering physics side and the biological side of education. So in this particular paper, they hypothesized that the possible mechanism of EMF effects on the immune system, which we think is kind of relevant to today's environment, that the link, which has been supported by many, many other papers, as being both stimulatory and inhibitory on the immune system. The effects of long-term EMF exposure has the potential to eventually lead to immunosuppression via downstream inhibition of the enzyme calcineurin, which is a protein phosphatase. It activates the T cell on the immune system, in the immune system, and can be blocked by pharmaceutical agents. So if you were to take the reason you would take these is if you had had an organ transplant and you were trying to reduce the chance of rejection. But when you take these drugs, there's an increased risk of opportunistic infections. So what kind of things those would be fungal, viral, such as like Epstein-Barr virus or the cytomegalovirus, atypical bacterial, so like Nocardia, Listeria, mycobacterial and mycoplasma, and parasitic, like toxoplasmosis. There's a lot of evidence that EMF poses the same risks through similar mechanisms. So EMF would do it through the upregulation of VGCC, so voltage-gated calcium channels, which we've done papers on before in the past. This causes an increase in intracellular calcium, which causes an increase in downstream ROSs, which is reactive oxygen species. This also has a feedback effect on inhibiting calcineurin. A weakened immune system is often accompanied by functional impairments, so in things that were previously considered kind of rare, like ASD or autism spectrum disorder, chronic fatigue syndrome, and ADHD. So again, much like previous videos and on papers we've done, such as Dr. Paul and many other papers that we've yet to discover insights on the effects of EMF on the cells, specifically on calcium channels. There's a lot out there. What happens is the signal causes an increase in calcium influx into the cell, causing more intracellular calcium, obviously, from the extracellular calcium ions. So calcium moves into the cells, causing an activation of calcineurin, which also simultaneously causes nitric oxide synthase, which causes obviously NO. So leading to intracellular calcium, which causes NO synthase, obviously causing more nitric oxide. So this also causes more intracellular calcium, which of course leads to more NO. And this eventually leads to more ROS. And ROS causes the inhibition of calcineurin. And they cited a bunch of papers, such as, one such study by Manaconda et al., for example, found that a 90-day extremely low frequency, ELF, 50 hertz, magnetic field exposure at 50 milliteslas and 100 milliteslas induced an increase in calcineurin activity with an increase in intracellular calcium levels in the hippocampal brain regions. Ekrut et al. Found with increasing radio frequency at 1800 megahertz, exposure durations from 6, 12, and 24 hours for up to 20 days, there was an increased reduction in calcineurin activities in both bone and muscle tissue of newborn rats. Hence, it is assumed that depending on the changing complexity of the parameters, like cell type, quality, duration, intensity of exposure, etc., that EMFs can have a stimulatory, inhibitory, or no effect whatsoever on the intracellular calcineurin activity. It is further postulated here that while the influx of calcium into the cell can initially have stimulatory effect on the enzyme calcineurin, a pathological increase in calcium can also stimulate the enzyme nitric oxide synthase to produce more nitric oxide, leading to the production of peroxynitrate and other reactive oxygen species. which may have a downstream potential to inhibit enzyme calcineurin. They also say that planetary life is incessantly exposed on a daily basis to an increasing thickening soup of invisible EMF frequencies at a variety of power densities, pulse modulations, and durations. And it has been estimated that we are now being exposed to anywhere between 1 quadrillion to 1 quintillion times the amount of EMR that we would normally receive from natural background sources. The health effects cited in literature include an opening of the blood-brain barrier, genotoxicity, cancer, and infertility, and involve neurological, neurodegenerative, immune system, allergic, inflammatory, and cardiovascular effects. So, in conclusion, their hypothesis proposes that the means by which man-made electromagnetic fields can have the potential to disturb the immune system, homeostasis, is by opening the VGCCs and pathological increase of intracellular calcium levels, leading to pathological intracellular levels of ROS, which in turn have the potential to inhibit calcineurin, leaving the body increasingly susceptible to opportunistic infection. In other words, just in conclusion, electromagnetic radiation leads to immunosuppression. So anyways, in conclusion, I hope that helped to clarify a few things. I'm going to post the paper title and authors below, so you can read this paper if you'd like yourself. It's actually a pretty good read. Please enjoy, and thank you for sticking with us.